Andrew, you mentioned out of the three, the biggest challenge we have is ourself, our own mirror, as I like to call it.
Yeah.
Would you be vulnerable with me and share with me in an audience? You're a very successful human being, you're a successful entrepreneur, athlete, educated. What was the biggest obstacle in your mind, the biggest hurdle in your mind back in the day to move forward?
I don't think it's an individual one. I think we all have 1,000 invisible battles that we're dealing
On
with.
our shoulders. Yeah, mine is this right here. Peanut butter. I got it taped up because November, it's no month. So I've challenged all my guests, and I'm going to challenge you too. So the ask of the month here is, what would you say no to? So it kind of themes into the conversation here, right? Because for me, Andrew, peanut butter goes with everything, including just a spoon. And it gets in the way of my life, right? I'm just peanut butter all the time. And I've been off peanut butter for the month of November, and I feel great. My body feels great, less inflammation. I just feel awesome. So I say it in an entertaining, informing perspective, but it's a demon that sits on the shoulder for me because it just gets in the way of everything. What about you? So what was we'll get back to your November challenge later, but you said there's a number of things that not one individual thing, but what's the one thing, or what are some things that you wrestle with, Andrew?
On the single biggest and most consistent
Yeah.
is the story I tell myself
Yeah.
about what's going on.
Ah,
And
interesting.
it whether it was when I was a consultant
Yeah.
and not making the most of the opportunity I was having there because I felt, oh, it's all imposed on me. I'm having to do this, as opposed to I'm getting this incredible opportunity. People try their whole lives to, what can I get out of this? What is it that I want to get out of this, and how do I shape that? I was a victim as opposed to the author of my story. With my wife, all the time, I create this story, right? So she'll say something,
Mhm.
and I create a story about what all that meant. And the more now I just play back, well, so you said this. And you say, actually, I didn't. Like, here were the words I said. You reframed all those words. And now you're saying I said this, but that's not what I said. I said this other thing. Okay. And so just back to the challenging the assumptions.
Mhm.
I create these stories based on all these assumptions. You may see that tip of the iceberg, and then I come up with what underneath looks like. And maybe 50% of the time it's right, maybe 5% of the time it's right. But unless I go challenge and dig deeper on it, the story isn't necessarily based on reality, right? You see this point, and then you're extrapolating this crazy
Well,
line.
sometimes, Andrew, it's just the story is just the iceberg on top. It has nothing to do with underneath it. That's what we're talking. I can relate to that. I have people in my life that think about everything happening underneath the ocean, like yourself. Okay, well, here's the iceberg. Yeah, but what about everything underneath that's going to blow up the world? No, we're actually not worried about everything underneath the ocean right now. Just the top of the iceberg. That's what
Yeah.
you're talking about, aren't you?
Yeah, 100%. Because I create, and sometimes there's nothing under the ocean. Sometimes it's just this little thing, and I've just made up this whole world. And intellectually knowing it
Yes.
is not the same as being able to realize it and live it in the moment.
Yes. It's like
So
watching a movie and not separating the fact that's actually a movie going on. It's not real, but yet in front of your eyes are convincing you that it's real, right?
right,
Same thing, right?
correct, because we were playing that movie in our mind. It's a funny thing about the future or the past. The only thing that ever exists, ever happens, is the present.
Yes.
Definitionally, we only ever live in the present. That's all there ever is. The past is only our imagination. It's these stories we're telling ourselves. The future is only our imagination. And what we're doing in the present can go create the future if we do the execution. But otherwise, it's just these stories. And we can tell these stories in ways that are empowering, that say, hey, I'm consciously going to pick up the pen and decide the tone of voice I'm going to tell this story in. Intentional. Or we can revert to our less ideal selves. And it's that little person on your shoulder. You're
Mhm.
not good enough. You didn't do this. It's Peter Attia talks about his is called Bobby Knight.
Mhm.
Shouts at him, right?
Mhm.
So again, the natural thing is to have the Bobby Knight, is to have this. And people say, how do you fix it? Say, oh my God, I don't know. I'm not Buddha. Like, I haven't fixed it. But what I do get better at is noticing sooner,
Mhm.
noticing before I spin out further down. Whoa, whoa, whoa. what is this story I'm telling myself? What was it that actually happened? What was it that was actually said? What were the words? Let me start unpacking that. And God bless my daughter. She's so good. She's 7, but she's all the time. She'll challenge me on it. I'll be acting in some ways like, Daddy, what is going on? And unpacking, and we'll dig. And wait, Daddy, it's about that? Why didn't you just talk about that? Because I didn't realize it was about that until you started taking me
Yeah.
through this process. And so I haven't gotten great at it, but I've gotten better than I was. And it's with just a lot of practice.
With so much content being generated today around us, everywhere we look, there's content being generated, which means there's narratives being generated everywhere.
Mhm.
Right. And I love the power of a narrative. I love the power of a good story. If there's anything I'm learning from this show, is we all have stories to tell. Right. And but they equally, when they get into your own head, they can eat you alive. I have had to use this show, Andrew, to be vulnerable back to you, as my own platform to start telling my new story,
Mm.
to create my own new narrative instead of what was going on in my head months ago, because I was wrestling with that guy on my shoulder.
Yeah.
So this has been a place for me to come out and talk about the narrative, talk about the story, and get ahead of it and not worry about what's happening underneath the ocean.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it comes back to some level of that social connection piece, right? So
Yes.
we think about health, and athletes, you're coming from a certain world where we think about health in a very focused or isolated area. So there's fitness, right? For a lot of people, that is health. It's
Yeah.
fitness, fitness,
Yes.
fitness. And I remember for the longest time not believing or knowing anything about nutrition and how important that was. And when I was a swimmer, the junk we ate, I said, wow, if I knew then what I know now about nutrition, I would have been a different athlete. So we have fitness, we have nutrition. Then we have sleep and recovery. It wasn't until my mid 30s that I realized, Dr. Walker, all these other people, how important sleep is.
Mhm.
I would just grind, right? I was a distance swimmer. We had 6 days a week of practice. I would go in on Sunday to go get another 5,000 kilometers or 5,000 meters in and everything, right? Like the idea of recovery or needing sleep, that was for the weak. I didn't need sleep. No, you're a human being. You need sleep. You got to recover. So we have fitness, nutrition, sleep and recovery. Then we have stress management and mindset. And if we're not dealing with that, we're not actually healthy, right? It starts to impact us because if we're stressed, our cortisol levels are up. We're not going to recover the same. Our fitness isn't going to reach where it is. And then we have social connection. So we know if you're socially isolated, if you're lonely, all the markers, your blood pressure's up, your cortisol levels are up. You could be killing it on these other pieces, but you don't have that social connection. You're not actually healthy. And being healthy, investing in your longevity, investing in your health span, you have to have all 5. And I think, especially post COVID, you see the rich world spending $600 billion less a year now on social activities, on clubs, on restaurants. They're buying more items, sitting at home, streaming at home, not going to the movie theater. And we're not yet seeing what the long term impact of letting that 5th piece of our health fall off is going to look like. And I think it's really dangerous.